One thing I want you to learn from this course is not only a series of facts and not even to think more deeply about the story, but also to learn some of the current controversies and some of the big names among scholars today who are looking at the time periods that we're talking about. For example, you've already skimmed an article by Jared Diamond. The instructions I gave you were skimmed that article. And that article was on the agricultural revolution. Diamond's argument there is one which pops up quite often in conversation about the prehistoric period. And so I want you to be familiar with it and aware of it. Not that I agree with Jared Diamond, but I want you to be made aware of the big names and the big thoughts that are going on in these time periods. In other words, I want you to understand that what historians do is not just read numbers and names out of history textbooks, but that we really do think and work through problems, and we discuss things together and debate things together, present cases and arguments and all that kind of stuff. Well, for the Bronze Age, there's something very interesting that happens right around the year 1100 BC. And that is that everything we've talked about so far, at least when we're talking about civilization, collapses. The Egyptian civilization collapses. The Hittites collapse. The Ugarites collapse. The Minoans collapse. The Mycenaeans collapse. The Harappans collapse. Everything collapses. Civilization comes to a breaking point. And we enter a period of a couple hundred years of dark ages. Dark ages where we don't know very much about what's going on. That's for the most part because written languages have disappeared. Not entirely, but we have very few historical records, and we have very little interest, apparently from the people who survived this collapse, in living in cities. And so I'm going to be giving you a presentation, or linking you to a presentation given by a scholar, Eric Cline, who's written a book with the ironic title, I'm trying to hold it up for you, 1177 BC, the year civilization collapsed. It's an ironic title because obviously civilization doesn't collapse in 1 year. Okay, it's a lightweight book. It's you could easily read it, having completed this course. It's maybe, 275 pages. It's not terribly deep. You have learned about the Hittites and the Mycenaeans and the Minoans and the Ugarites and all the different groups that he talks about. You might take a look at it later. I haven't looked. It might be in our library at CF. If not, they can get it through our library loan if you're interested. I'm not assigning it to you, of course. 1177 BC. That happens to be a particular year that Cline just kind of picks out. Because, of course, this all doesn't happen in 1 year. In fact, towards the end of the book, he raises the question, if the civilization we lived in, Western civilization, started collapsing 50 years ago, would we even know today? Because it takes time for these things to fall apart. Well, Cline is a notable scholar, very good scholar. He's a professor at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., which has very fine graduate programs. You're going to be viewing a presentation that he gave at Yale University in 2016, just a few years ago. It's about an hour long. I have to tell you, the man who introduces Cline, his audio is very bad. He doesn't have a microphone, but once Cline takes the podium, then the audio clears up. So just bear with that introductory period. It is an hour long. I want you not to forget how to listen to long lectures during this time where we are dividing things up online. It makes an awful lot of sense to go with smaller time units, 15 minutes and less, but I don't want you to lose track of how to pay attention over longer periods of time. So I'd like you to take notes, just like you would if it were me giving a lecture. It's someone a bit more high-powered than I am, but you'll be able to learn quite a bit from watching Dr. Cline's presentation here.